Hi guys, welcome back. If you are new here, my name's Laura. Go watch my intro video first before you start, but I am so excited to have my mom here. She's in town, flew in from Indiana visiting for the weekend, and she is going to share with you her weight loss journey, her health journey, keto, carnivore, all the craziness that I have somehow convinced her to do, and it's really inspiring, so I'm going to have her share a little bit with you. She is 60 plus, we'll say.
62. I'm not ashamed of that.
Right? And I want her to tell you, her name's Melissa, and I'm stealing her away from the kids for a little bit so she can talk with you all. I would love it, Mom, if you can start with just, we're not going to go into the whole backstory of your life, but start with like kind of what led up to, a year and a half ago when we all started on this health journey together.
Well, just for a really quick background, I was probably in my 40s after I had already had 3 children, and I still weighed 110. That was my life.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
Okay.
So I had always been pretty thin. I had a couple pretty traumatic experiences that happened in my life, and over the course of a couple years, I gained 100 pounds. And I tried from that point on the whole gamut. Weight Watchers, the low carb, low calorie. I did vegan with Laura for a while.
We went through that. We both watched that Forks Over Knives movie, and we both just decided that was what we were going to do. So that didn't work.
So definitely have tried a little bit of everything over the last, let's say the last at least 15 years for sure.
Right. She kind of has gone through that same yo-yo cycle that I have. We would both get on, even though we've lived in different states for the last 15 years, we still have gone through these same cycles of trying to help each other out, and usually then we would see each other and we'd either both be on it or we'd both be off of it and have a similar eating cycle together. So
well, things got more complicated for me about 15 years ago. I was diagnosed with thyroid problems. So after I had gained 100 pounds, then here's thyroid problems coming into play, which made it almost impossible to lose. And then about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes.
Yes, type 2 diabetes, which in time, it just kept getting worse. My numbers kept going up. I would take more medication. So let's go back to just say 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I had been taking a shot of Victoza for my sugar every morning for at least 5 years. And then I was also on the full dose 2,000 milligrams of metformin, which I did that probably for at least 7 or 8 years. And my numbers continued to go up. My sugar, after not eating all night in the mornings, was still about 180, 200. And it seemed like no matter what I did, I tried exercising, I tried just a variety of things, and it just seemed like that nothing was working. So it was very frustrating.
And you had been officially diagnosed with Hashimoto's at that time as well.
Yes, that was probably about 5 years ago also that I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, a particular kind of thyroid disease.
And so you still had been playing around with thyroid medication and could not get couldn't get the right levels. The thing with Hashimoto's and thyroid is that the medication really can cause major swings. I know that was causing some problems.
And I was having to have my blood checked for thyroid levels every 3 or 4 months. Every time that I would get my levels checked, I had to change my medication. So that was a huge frustration. And because of all the diabetes medicine that I was on, I felt sick on my stomach 24/7. If I was awake, I felt sick on my stomach. And for some reason, the only thing that made me feel better was carbs, which of course was making everything worse.
Yeah. So that's kind of what led to this cycle of you feel nauseous, you eat some carbs, you take your medication because you ate so many carbs, you have to have more medication, then you feel sick and you eat something that's carbs.
Yes.
And it's that cycle of convincing, you've almost convinced yourself that you need the carbs to make you not feel nauseous, when that's really the problem.
Yes.
So back up to January 1st, as we always did every year, January 1st, we would start off on plan and try to have a good time, or try to be good. 2018, we all started low carb. You in Indiana and us here in Arizona. And I think we made it till the end of January for Penelope's birthday that year. And you flew out and we all had birthday cake at my daughter's birthday party. And then
pizza, and then chocolate and ice cream. Yeah, lots of ice cream.
And then we kind of all went off the rails again for a little while. And then that's when I started in March, I started doing keto. And then what kind of led you to decide again? We'd been trying keto on and off for a little while. So what made you decide to want to do keto again?
Well, I really was at the point, and honestly, my doctor kind of shook me up because she said, I want to talk to you about something, and I want to know, do you want to keep your feet and your hands and your eyes, basically? She said, because your sugar is totally out of control and you need to do something really drastic. And so that was kind of a wake-up call. In the meantime, March of 2018, Laura had started doing keto. And so when I came out then in April for my grandson's birthday, and she had been doing keto for about a month and was already getting results. And I thought, I need to just try this and quit messing around. I've got to try something else. Mm-hmm. So then I decided to start doing keto in April and did pretty much just what we call dirty keto. I was having bars. I was having a lot of the
low carb tortillas.
Yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff. A lot of the keto snacks.
And you drank a big cup of like bulletproof tea every morning with all the oils.
Yes.
Coconut oils, MCT oils, all the stuff poured into it.
And I also was eating 3 meals a day and having snacks at least in the evening, if not one other time during the day. But I was still losing, and partly because I was over 100 pounds overweight. So I really just started that, was getting some good results. And then as things happen, it kind of slowed down a little bit. I was still having some trouble with my sugar. I was losing some weight, but my sugar was not really going down like I thought it should have been. And so at that point, I started reading Dr. Jason Fung's book, Breaking the Diabetic Code. And that book really started a huge change in my life. Not only talking about what does eating really do for you, the importance of the low carb, and then also what really made a huge change for me was starting to incorporate the intermittent fasting. And I totally thought you were crazy when you and Chris started talking about the fact that they were, doing fasting and skipping meals. And I thought, oh my goodness, this has turned into an eating disorder. I'm really concerned. That's when Laura said to me, she said, well, you haven't really done any research on this, and I have. So before you judge me, do some research. So that
was very sweet and very kind, I'm sure, as a mother to daughter. Relationship always is.
That's when I got Dr. Jason Fung's book. I started watching a lot of his videos on YouTube and then went ahead and got the book. And I also, by the way, did give that book to my doctor, and she read it cover to cover and has been in sharing that with other patients. So I think that's really exciting. But anyway, my change in my sugar really did not start happening until I was doing the intermittent fasting. To start out with my fasting, I was eating 2 meals a day. I just cut out I would usually do lunch and dinner because I didn't really have time to eat breakfast in the mornings, and I wasn't that hungry in the morning. So that really was not that hard for me. Then I went ahead after a few months and went down, I would say probably 9 months ago, maybe 10 months ago, and actually went to eating 1 meal a day. And I was able, during this course of this past year, I have gotten off of my shot, the Victoza. I got off of all my metformin. My sugar levels normalized. My doctor actually took diabetes off of my medical chart and said that she no longer considers me diabetic. My blood sugars now are running usually in the 80s and 90s, and it's just been amazing.
Good. And that was all with just doing keto. Then you were strict. We had cut out the processed foods at that time. When you were eating your 1 meal a day for the most part, when you were still more keto and had reversed all these things, what were you eating at that time?
Well, when I went down to 1 meal a day, I knew that if I was only going to eat once, I had to choose it very carefully. And so I was pretty much doing meat and vegetables. I did still have some broccoli, and once in a while, a little bit of salad, but mostly it was just the broccoli. I might have a piece of tomato on my burger, but very little vegetables and mostly just the meat. However, I was still eating quite a bit of nuts, macadamia nuts, and some Chalk Zero bars sweetened with monk fruit, dark chocolate with monk fruit, and of course cheese, which is, acceptable, but I was still doing that quite a bit. Then at some point,
Yeah, at some point we told her we were now to cut out vegetables and vegetables were unhealthy and that we were doing full carnivore again. And what was your reaction to that?
and I said, okay, you're really crazy now because there's no way that not eating vegetables is healthy. So, you know, every time they would take it another step farther and I would say, this is nuts. Now you've gone too far.
Now we have a, now this time it's an eating disorder.
So then Laura started sharing podcasts and videos with me about oxalates in vegetables. And then I thought, oh, well, I'll just give this kind of a try. I'll try carnivore. And lo and behold, my inflammation in my ankle, which I had surgery on several years ago, and other joints in my body because I have dealt with arthritis in the past, they really started feeling better. And so I said, well, maybe there really is something to this. So I would say probably about it was in January.
Of 2019. So a full year, you know, after we started all this.
Yeah, a full year. When was the all-in for keto? Was that
World Carnivore Month was January with
Okay.
Sean Baker. And so I had challenged her, you know what? You keep thinking I'm crazy. She was here at Christmas and we all had too many keto treats at Christmas and we all felt terrible and inflammation and nuts and all that stuff. And so I said, you know what? We'll all just do real strict carnivore for January for World Carnivore Month. And that's when I think was the first time that you really went strict carnivore for the whole month and cut out the nuts and all the vegetables.
Yes. And for the last, say, 6 months, I really have been what I call, I don't know if you call it dirty carnivore. I don't think they call it dirty keto, but I have been doing what I think is called more relaxed carnivore. Mostly I'm eating meat, cheese, and eggs, but once in a while I will throw in a handful of nuts, which I know cause me problems and create inflammation, but I just love them so much. And I used to eat a 1.5 pound bag of macadamia nuts
From
every
Costco,
week, from
those big ones.
Costco every week. And shockingly, I was still losing for a while doing that. But then I started cutting it back, and now I might have, I might get a bag that will last me for a couple months. And then I'll go for a couple months and won't eat any nuts at all. And
I mean, you haven't had any now before, like, it's been several months since you've had any.
Right. So I just know that I feel better and I feel healthier if I don't eat a lot of nuts. But, I do love them once in a while. However, I really do eat, I would say at least 3 or 4 days a week, I'm eating a piece of the sugar-free chocolate. And like I said, I usually use Chalk Zero because it's sweetened with monk fruit, and I really don't, it does not spike my blood sugar that I can notice. And it's not like a lot, it's 1 or 2 carbs in one of their little bars. And I'm doing that probably 2 or 3 days a week.
And I think the difference that we've talked about is that you can moderate that. She can have 2 little squares of dark chocolate and that doesn't trigger her to go all out, but a handful of macadamia nuts does trigger you to go all in and eat a whole bag of macadamia nuts. Right. So knowing what's going to trigger you to kind of go off the rails versus what are you capable of moderating. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing unless it's one of those foods that really bothers you physically and it causes you to overeat them.
And I think that's different for different people. For me, for some people, chocolate is a real trigger. For me, it's not. Yeah. I can eat a little bit of chocolate and I'm fine for a few days. But the nuts, if I eat a half a cup, then the next thing I know, it's 1 cup, 2 cups. So, knowing what it is that really triggers you. And I actually am to the point right now, and I have lost 70 pounds, probably 72 actually, in the last year and a half. Well, it'll be a year and a half in October. And so I know that I'm at the point where I've maintained for the last several months. And I know that I'm at the point that if I want to lose the last 10, 15 pounds, that I'm going to have to really say no to nuts, to chocolate, and maybe some cheese. I eat a lot of cheese. So I know that those are some things that I really will notice a difference, but I'm just not ready to. I'm really enjoying where I am. I enjoy eating those things once in a while, and I'm just not ready to give it up, even though my daughter does encourage me.
So tell me about, we're gonna wrap this up and we're gonna check in a few months when I come see you next. But I do want, what medications do you take now for diabetes, for type 2 diabetes?
None. I'm off of all my diabetes meds, and my sugars are normal.
And then how has your thyroid been since incorporating all this?
Well, actually, what has happened in the last year is that every time I still get my blood work done about every 4 months to check my thyroid levels, and every time that I've had it checked, my medicine has been reduced. So if you have any thyroid issues, you know what a big deal it is when they start reducing your medication. So whereas before, it just kept going up and up. And so I'm now at a level with my thyroid medication that I used to be on before I was even diagnosed with Hashimoto's, much lower level.
Good. Well, I cannot even begin to tell you how proud I am of you. I tell you that all the time. And I think I get a lot of questions about what happens, you know, people say, I'm in my 60s, I can't do this, or I'm postmenopausal, I can't lose weight. And I know it's so much harder and more challenging, and you have done it, and I'm so proud of you. And I think just the willingness to look at something like it's completely crazy and then yet dive into the research. Like, I don't know if she ever would have just believed me on my own, but she really dove into the research herself. And you know, you're gonna be around for a long time now.
And it's definitely been Laura's encouragement, and Chris too. He's an amazing story. Their encouragement and their example, and just, you know, what I have seen watching them and the information that they have shared with me has just been invaluable. My mother, who's 82 years old, still asks me every time I see her or talk to her, how long are you going to be doing this before you start eating normal again? And so it is hard for a lot of people to understand, but when people are willing to give it a try and find out that there are wonderful health benefits and they actually are feeling so much better,
right,
it's hard to argue with that.
And it's this ripple effect, I think. Like, it was our example that influenced you, and I didn't have to preach at you or yell at you or anything. It just made you ask questions. And your example, there are so many people that she works with, her brothers and her relatives and people around her, that are all now, you know, impacting and reversing their symptoms and finding better health and their journey just from the example that she's setting. So, you know,
my brother has lost almost 80 pounds, and he's doing strict carnivore for, probably at least 8-10 months, and has gotten off of all his diabetes medicine, blood pressure medicine, just, you know, has seen some really great results.
Yeah, it's been a really big ripple effect through our family. So we're excited, and we're going to, actually, Chris is cooking some steaks right now. So we're going to go eat some big ribeyes for lunch today.
Sounds yummy.
Thanks, guys. We'll check back in a few months.